There are tons of very well known and very well documented Mario plushes that exist today, but today we're going to be looking at one that's very obscure and very underdocumented, especially with one character in the set. So with that said, welcome to a look at the Super Mario RPG plush set. Now a little bit of history about this plush set before we get to the individual plushes themselves. This plush set was released by the company Takara in the year 1995 to promote the game Super Mario RPG. And these plushes were only available in UFO catchers in Japan, so a pretty obscure place to get them. And over the years, these plushes have become extremely rare, selling for thousands of dollars, and one character in the set even selling for $20,000 once. And yeah, this is a really highly wanted plush set by basically every collector, so yeah, it's really hard to get any of the plushes in the set. So with that out of the way, let's start with the first individual plush in the set being the Mario. Now, one thing that you'll notice about all the plushes in the set is that they really look like the in-game counterparts. You see, Super Mario RPG has a very unique style in the game, and well, the plushes actually put that into perspective really well. And if you compare the in-game design of Mario to the plush, you can see that it has a lot of similarities to it. Now, let's start off with Mario's face. Mario's face is overall pretty good and pretty well accurate. The hat is for some reason made out of this shiny material, which on all the plushes in the set, it does use a bit of the shiny material for some reason. I don't know why Takara just didn't make the rest of the plush out of the same material, but I guess they didn't want to do that. The emblem on the hat is made out of felt, so it could fall off and get damaged. Same thing with the mustache on Mario's face. The eyes are also just iron-on, so they could get cracked and damaged, which you definitely don't want with this rare of a plush. And for the rest of the plush, the proportions of Mario's arms and leg are actually really good compared to the actual in-game design of the character. And the buttons on Mario's overalls are just made out of felt, and they're just loosely glued on, so they could fall off. And overall, this Mario is actually one of the best in the whole set in terms of accuracy. This plush has all the good designs and aspects that every Mario plush needs. And yeah, overall, this is one of the best Mario plushes in terms of game accuracy. If you want this plush, look on eBay or Yahoo Japan auctions, but it could sell for a lot of money. Like, it could sell for up to $1,000, but that's pretty cheap for this plush even. A lot of the plushes in the set nowadays sell for upwards of $2,000, so yeah, really expensive. Now let's move on to the next plush set, which is the Yoshi. Just like the Mario, the Yoshi plush is actually really good in compared to the in-game design of it. Yoshi's body has all the correct proportions, and overall the face is just really nicely detailed with the cheeks and everything. Yoshi's shell is also a pretty good size for him compared to the in-game design. The eyes are made out of plastic, and it could get shit because there is paint on it, so you could lose the pupils of his eyes because they're only made out of paint. Yoshi's shoes use the same exact material as Mario's head, so for some reason Takara made this weird material for some reason only certain aspects of the plush. And the soles of Yoshi's shoes are orange, and they're made out of a felt material, so they could collect dust and get damaged. And one thing cool about the Yoshi plush is that actually if you look at it from a certain angle, you can see that it actually has a mouth, which is quite hard to see, but it's still a nice detail from Takara to add. Overall, this is just a really good Yoshi plush overall, and especially it's very game accurate. Just like Mario, look on eBay or Yahoo Japan for this plush, and it could sell for a lot of money, and there's actually one currently on eBay for $2,500. So if you have an extra $2,500 laying around, then you could buy this plush. Now let's move on to one of the coolest plushes in the whole set being Boshi. Now the Boshi plush uses basically the exact same design and sculpture of the Yoshi plush, which makes sense because it's just like a blue Yoshi with a bunch of cool extra features of it. And overall, this plush is just really accurate looking. The sunglasses are made out of felt, and they could fall off because they are just glued on, and they probably don't have any eyes under the sunglasses, so that would just look really weird. He also has fangs which are made out of felt, and once again could collect debris and dust and get damaged. He also has a collar around his neck with spikes on it, which are also made out of a felt material, so he could get damaged. As you can tell, on a lot of these plushes, the extra details are made out of felt, which could easily get the plushes damaged by. So that was kind of a weird decision from Takara to make. And Boshi's shoes are also made out of a felt material, so once again, they could get damaged. Overall, this is just a really cool plush and a really unique plush because no other official plush of Boshi was ever made by any company, and to be honest with you, there'll really never be another Boshi plush to be released because it is quite an obscure character. Now the reason why I say it's probably the last official plush to be released is because there's actually a bootleg of this plush. Now the bootleg of this plush is actually pretty obviously a bootleg. It's quite small compared to the official variant. Also, the plush itself, it really just kind of looks squished, and also it just has all the wrong proportions on the face, so it's quite easy to tell when it's a bootleg. So it's not very hard to not fall for this because it's quite obvious when it's a bootleg and not an official plush. And also, usually the bootlegs are really cheap, so yeah, if the plush is super cheap, it's not the official variant of it. Also, from what I've seen from people owning this plush, the plush should fall apart pretty easily, so yeah, it's just a bootleg that could fall apart easily, so I would not recommend getting it. Now, if you want an official version of this Boshi plush, look on eBay or Yahoo Japan, but it sells for a lot of money, like thousands of dollars. The last one I saw was on Yahoo Japan and it sold for like $4,000, so yeah, these sell for a lot of money. Now, before we get to the most well-known and most mysterious plush in this whole set, let's look at some items. Now, in this set, there was two really kind of look extra plushes made in this set, starting off with the star. Now, the star is made out of a shiny material used on Yoshi's shoes and Mario's hat. Overall, even though these are just items, they still have a really nice in-game design to them and are really accurate to the game. Also, the eyes on this plush are just made out of felt, so they could get damaged. So even though this is probably the most simplistic plush in this whole set, it still just looks really nice and quite accurate to the game. Now let's move on to the other item, being the mushroom. Now, the mushroom in this set has a bit more detail than the star to it, but still really not that much detail. The eyes don't even have any pupils in them, they're just made out of black felt. But the spots on the mushroom do look quite nice and are quite accurate as well. This is also probably the most common plush in this whole set, and I really don't see the items go for much money. They could probably sell for a few $100s, but not thousands of dollars like the other plushes in the set, so if you do want a plush from the set, you probably have the best chance of finding one of these and being able to afford it. So now let's move on to the most mysterious and most well-known plush in this whole set, being the Mallow. Now, before I get to the plush itself, let's talk about the history of this plush. Now, for over a decade, we only had one picture of this plush, being from this listing from the early 2000s on Yahoo Japan. And for over a decade, this was the only image of Mallow that ever existed, and no one else had proof of the plush ever existing. But that was until 2016 when another listing came up with a few other Mario RPG plushes in it and also Mallow. And basically, this listing confirmed that Mallow actually existed, because the other listing, people were saying that it could have just been a custom, but this kind of just confirmed that this plush actually existed. And it's crazy that we only had two images of this plush even in 2016, because this plush was released in 1995, so it took 20 years to only get two images of this plush. And in 2021, another listing came out which was sold for very cheap that also had Mallow in it. And the most recent case of Mallow being up for sale was in 2022 when this plush sold for $20,000. Yes, you heard that right, $20,000 for a Mario plush. To this day, there's only ever been 4 listings of this Mallow plush in over 20 years of this plush existing, which is really crazy. And just like the rest of the plushes in the set, the Mallow overall is pretty well detailed. Mallow's shoes seem to be made out of some weird, like, papery material. It's kind of a weird looking material and I don't really know what it is. The eyes are just made out of plastic with paint on them, so they could get chipped. And Mallow's shoes are just made out of felt, so they could get damaged. And overall, this plush is just really nicely detailed and really good looking. But yeah, if you want this plush, you basically have no chance of finding it because the last one sold for $20,000, so even if this plush does show up again, it'll be really expensive. And it's very unlikely another one will show up for cheap because now people know the true value of this plush even when it's not in a lot. So even if you did find one, you have to pay upwards of $20,000 for this plush. So yeah, in my opinion, it's really not worth it to pay $20,000, especially just for a Mario plush. But yeah, some people will. And yeah, which plush in this set is your favorite? Mine's probably Boshi, but comment down below what yours is, and yeah, have a great day.